So continuing chapter 12 on window guards, page 235. This is a section of the lease contract because the book doesn't have any paragraphs pertaining to this or talking about this for some reason. So we're just going to highlight or put a highlighted box around this section in the actual contract on page 235, section number 36. You have to understand about window guards. Or you can take a screenshot of the next slide, which I'm going to go over, which I have notes, which are a little bit easier to study and understand. But it doesn't hurt. Just put a highlighted box around section 36 on that page 235 there. Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Unfortunately, there's no paragraph in this book that talks about this. So we have to only highlight this in the book. But instead of reading all these capital letters in bold over here, I'm going to go to after you guys get section 36 highlighted, I'm going to go to my next slide that I made up about window guards. Now, what you need to know is the section here in the top in the box, okay? The rest is useful information, but this is the only stuff you need to know for exams. Usually they throw something on exams about window guards. And window guards, what are they? Well, they prevent the windows from opening wide enough that a child can fall out of them. So it applies to buildings with 2 or less rental units. Window guards must be installed by the landlord. If there's a child 10 years of age or younger that'll be living there or regularly present there. If the landlord if the tenant gives the landlord a written request to install those window guards. HOAs, the homeowners associations, if it's a condo, they're responsible for installing those window guards in the common hallway area windows. And it's only required for first floor units where the windowsill is at least 6 feet above grade. You'd figure second, third floor they may require it, but it's only required for first floor units where the windowsill is at least 6 feet above grade. All right, so that's what you need to know for exams. And I'm going to show you examples of what window guards look like too in the next slide. But I looked up this additional information for you. Buildings with 3 or more units, because this only applies to 2 or less. Buildings with 3 or more units in them, the landlord must install window guards unless the tenant tells them that they don't want them. And the landlord needs to check every year with them before February 15th and have them fill out a form whether they want those window guards or not. So the installed window guards must be inspected twice a year, once between March 1st and May 1st, and again between September 1st and December 1st. And the landlord needs to keep a inspection record that they've checked out the window guards, see that they're in good condition, they haven't been tampered with. Now, window guards as well as AC units, window AC units, must be installed using one-way tamper-resistant screws to bolt in that AC unit and the window guard unit without leaving any spaces greater than 4.5 inches, which a child may be able to shimmy through. So the costs can be passed on to the residents of up to $20 for each window guard that's installed. So this is what window guards look like. You see on the right up here from the outside. Here's for swinging windows, the ones that swing out. It's just an L bracket. And here's what they look like from the inside if you're looking out. So window guards on the left-hand side, you could see this is what a window guard is. It's just basically bars that have spaces less than 4.5 inches. So windows can open past that. So they have to have these L brackets installed that would prevent the window from opening past the window guard that could leave a space greater than 4.5 inches. All right, so typical lease provisions. What do we put in the leases? The use of the premises, what purpose it can be used for. Well, residential, it's residential, but on commercial leases, when we're looking at commercial, we're not the ones writing up those leases, but if it's not specified in the lease what purpose the tenant can or cannot use the premises for, then they could use it for any legal purpose. They could change a use at any time. This is why commercial leases usually specifically state what use it can or cannot, or both can and cannot be used for. Residential leases, it's a given. You can only use it as a residential premises. So the term of the lease, the start and end date or renewal date, or if it's at will. The agency relationships need to be disclosed in the lease, and it's just a checkbox. We also need to give CIS a form to any landlords and tenants as well that shows the different ways that we could work with them, the different types of business relationships. The Opinion 26 notice needs to be the cover page of any lease that's prepared by real estate licensees, and would only be preparing those for residential 1 to 4 families or single residential lots. But the commercial property leases, they need to be prepared by attorneys. If the property was built prior to 1978, we got that federal lead paint disclosure statement that needs to first be filled out by the landlord and then given to the tenant. We also need to give them that pamphlet about protecting their family from lead in the home, and a 10-day opportunity to conduct an inspection for lead or waive the inspection if they want to close on that lease any sooner. So just like the purchases, they got to give that same opportunity. And New Jersey has a lead safe law now, though. New Jersey came up with their own lead safe law that requires inspection. So effective July 2022, the New Jersey lead safe certification law requires lead inspections, whereas the federal law did not require it. It just required the owner to disclose any known lead paint or any inspections that showed lead paint hazards. This New Jersey law requires an inspection and remediation at the time of tenant turnover, or by July 24th, 2024, if there was no tenant turnover, meaning the tenants did not change, it was still the same tenants there. Now, a number of properties are exempt from this requirement. Those are those built after 1978 because lead was already banned from paints by then. Those certified free of lead-based paint, single family and 2-family seasonal rentals, and units located in buildings with 3 or more units that have been registered as lead-free and has no outstanding lead violation in the past 5 years. And those that have lead safe certificate issued within the last 2 years.
I forgot, what is lead?
Lead is a heavy metal, but lead-based paint. Lead is used as a dyeing agent and for pigments and drying agent in alkali oil-based paints. So lead, it could be harmful if introduced to the body, especially in young children. Okay? So it cause all kinds of developmental issues and nervous system issues and reproductive issues and brain development issues, and it can cause a lot of problems. All right. So here we have the links to the New Jersey New Jersey laws pertaining to the lead-based paint. They don't have a pamphlet. This is their on the website. Okay, so visual and dust wiping inspections. That's for municipalities. Okay, click here to have all your questions answered and see a seminar. What is lead and its associated hazards? Lead is a toxic, naturally occurring element.
Mm.
All right. And any heavy metal introduced to our bodies can cause all kinds of issues. How does one identify lead? Well, remember, 3M got that cotton swab that it turns red if it touches lead. If it's red, it's lead. But you could also see peeling and chipping paint. That's not that's a sign of lead-based paint. Other paints, those that have that are flexible, they don't peel and chip. Okay, that's a sign of lead paint as it gets older. See what are the requirements, inspection procedures, visual assessments. I don't want to get too deep into this. So that's the requirements for the lead. You need to have that federal lead paint disclosure. You need to give them the booklet, the pamphlet informing them about lead, and a 10-day opportunity to inspect for lead-based paints. And then if it's a rental, according to New Jersey's lead safe law, you need to have it inspected for lead. It has to be, and then any lead needs to be remediated. What do they mean remediated? You don't tear down the walls that have lead paint on them. All you do is you paint over it. You scrape away any loose chips and then you paint over it with non-lead based paint. That's the method of encapsulation.
But
Okay.
lead is just a paint, right? It's just a paint.
Well, it's a paint that contains lead, which is a heavy metal. And as those chips chip off, it could be dangerous to little children.
Yeah.
Let me see it. Let me look forward in the slideshow really quick, see if I have any.
Yeah.
No, that was a previous chapter when I went over those dangers and hazards of lead. But let me take a look at something really quick.
Because it's normally I see that in some like outside sad area, some old houses, I see that it's coming out. The paint is coming out. That's the one, right?
Yeah, when it's cracking and peeling and coming off of
Okay, peeling, yeah.
it, yeah. hmm Hold on, let me get away from this for 1 second for this slideshow. Just
Yeah.
1 second.
Hmm. Hmm.
Where- so you got little kids, they get curious. They want
Yeah.
to, little children, they're curious. They stick their fingers everywhere. They stick everything in their mouths. You can see the chipping away, cracking
Yeah.
away. This is lead paint. Uh, lead paint.
Yeah. Yeah, it is dangerous, right?
That's lead paint. You guys are seeing the pictures I'm showing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Lead, lead, plus
Mm.
this single pane window. These, they're not very efficient single pane windows, but either way, the caulking around it could contain lead as well.
Mm.
People living there? No, I don't think so, right?
What's that?
Yes, people living in the house? I don't think so,
No.
right?
They could be. They could be.
Very, very old houses. If you guys means if we
Yeah.
don't maintain, it happens, I think.
See how this little, you got the dust here from the lead, it cracks and peels off. Little kids touch it, put their fingers in their mouths. It could cause some serious issues, especially for the younger children. Here they're swabbing it, then they're going to mix it with the chemical.
Mm.
Lead, 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 lead.
Well,
You can see it's pretty
Mm.
identifiable.
Right.
So you see the cotton swab that has the chemical in there. You touch it to lead, anything that contains lead, and it turns red. That's 3M's lead check product there.
this tester,
Yeah,
like a tester, right?
yeah, that's their test kit. It's like an instant test kit. It comes in contact with lead, it turns red. Here you can see the window putty around the window, lead.
Mm.
So
These are
that's
lead.
lead check. If you use it on regular paint, it won't show red color, right?
Yeah, if the cotton swab turns red, it
That's
means
a
it's
lead.
red. It doesn't matter what color the paint is that it comes in contact with,
Hmm.
but it turns red if the paint contains lead in it.
Okay.
All right.
I believe the painting was in the past, right? Right now, the type the painting, it doesn't
Yeah,
have no more.
the newer paints don't contain lead because it was banned in what year was it banned? You should know this by now.
1978?
1978. There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah. All right. So we have we already went over this slide, this one, and this one. Okay, security deposits. Let's talk about security deposits. What are security deposits? First of all, they're a guarantee of rent payment and for damages. That security deposit money must be placed in a special interest-bearing account used only for security deposits. The tenant must be notified where the money is being held, and the tenant must get paid the interest earned on their security deposit that's being held by the landlord on the anniversary of the lease every year. They either get it as a credit on the anniversary of the lease towards their rent, or they get a check for it. So the penalty, if the landlord does not do this and the tenant knows their rights, they could take the landlord to court, and the landlord could be required to pay them double the entire security deposit. That's for
Right.
residential anyway, not commercial. If the landlord's been holding on to the tenant's security deposit, not having it in an interest-bearing account and paying that annually, that interest to the tenant, well, that's their money. They're entitled to the interest on it. So the penalty, if they don't do it, is double the entire security deposit. Now, the maximum security deposit we're allowed to charge by law is 1.5 times the monthly rental figure. There's no maximum security limits on commercial property. They can charge as much for security deposit as they want. As a matter of fact, 3 months is pretty common, but it could be 6 months even. Pet security can be charged as long as the total security deposit doesn't exceed 1.5 times the monthly rental figure. It doesn't matter how you label it. The maximum security allowed is 1.5 times the monthly rental figure. You can't charge additional security above that just because you call it something else. And remember, service animals, they cannot be charged additional fees for rent. I shouldn't say or security, because security they could. Because you could charge anybody security.
Can't go to that.
So you cannot charge additional rent or fees. Let me update that slide to just say rent or fees. If I can find it. There you go. Because they're not pets, so it's advised not to call it pet security. Cannot be charged, cannot be charged. And the security deposit must be returned within 30 days of the lease termination. So if there are no damages, the penalty for violating this rule, double the entire security deposit. Deductions for damages must be itemized. The landlord can't just say, hey, you created all this damage, we're keeping your security deposit. They need to give you an itemized list of what was damaged, how much each repair they're charging you for each repair or cleanup or whatever, and then give that to the tenant. They can't just keep your security deposit. They have to tell you why they're keeping the security deposit. They can't just say, hey, we're keeping your security deposit for damages. They got to specify, well, there was a hole in the wall over here. It cost X amount to fix that. We got all this furniture or garbage you left behind. We're going to need to charge you all this to dispose of it. Hire somebody to take it away and dispose of it. They can't just keep the money. Now, if the property's sold, the landlord has to turn over those security deposits to the new owner, because the new owner will be responsible for giving it back to the tenants when their lease expires. So let's highlight those things about security deposits now on page 239.
Okay. Hmm. Done.
Okay.
Yes.
Raphael, you get this too?
Yeah, I got it. I need a new one. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure you got it. Okay,
Yeah,
so
got it. Yeah.
late payments. Can a tenant be charged late fees or payments? Generally, yes, but you got to check with your local rent control laws if your municipality has rent control. Not all municipalities have rent control, but the ones that do, you got to see what their ordinances say pertaining to charging of late fees or raising rents or what have you. Now, some tenants may be given a 5-day or must be given a 5-day grace period free from any late fees or penalties. So even though the rent is due, say, on the first of the month, certain tenants must be given a 5-day grace period free from late fees or penalties. And those are people that are relying on basically payments from the government. So like Social Security benefits, old age retirement, railroad retirement pensions, or any government or quasi-government pension or payment plan or benefit. They got to be given a 5-day grace period free from any late fees or penalties, because they cannot, if the government is late sending the payment, they cannot hold the tenant responsible for being late because they're relying on that payment from the government, you know. So they got to be given a 5-day grace period free from any late fees or penalties. All right. So always check your local rent control laws before charging any late fees or penalties that could restrict you from doing so or can limit how much you can charge. So let's highlight that now on page 239 under late payments. Okay, everybody good?
Yep.
All right, so the legal principles of leases, as far as possession of the leased premises, tenants cannot take possession until the dates are specified on the lease come about. You as a real estate agent better not give the tenant keys or even unlock the door just so that they could put a few things in there, because now it's considered that they took possession if they put anything in those premises. So the landlord would have to evict them if they don't start paying rent or follow through with whatever. If you let that tenant occupy that premises in any way, even by putting their belongings in there before that first day of the lease and the city inspections, by the way, you cannot let anybody move in there until after the city inspections have been done. The city inspections for the fire, for safety, and for lead. Licensees should never give the tenant the keys, even just to store a few of their belongings in there before that lease. You know, even if they beg or plead, you got to say no, because you're giving them possession. You got to realize legally, what are you doing? If you just open that door just so they could put a bag in there so they don't have to carry it around in their car, you know, you're giving them possession of the premises now legally. It's considered a possession, and the only way you get them out is by eviction. So if they didn't follow through with whatever they were supposed to do to start leasing this property, well, it doesn't matter. They're already in there. So remember, I showed you a video in an earlier chapter about squatters and people breaking into houses and, claiming that they have valid leases and all. And there was one example of that in California. I told you New Jersey follows suit with California and their rules. New Jersey's a tenant right state, and they give the benefit to the tenant. And they know this. There's people that play the system. And you got some of these clowns, they'll break into your house and they'll change the locks, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I'm a tenant here. I'm renting. I got a valid lease from the landlord." And you could be like, "I am the landlord. What the hell are you talking about?" You call the cops. Now it's he said, she said, and you got to evict them. You got to go to court. That could be a long, drawn out process.
It costs money and time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And God knows what damages they're doing to your house, right? So the legal principles of the lease, in this one, I'm not going to show this video again. I believe we showed this video once before. I think I did. Not sure, did I? About this maintenance worker that used his pass key to go into this apartment. And then he started ruffling through the guy's fiance's underwear drawer and started doing unmentionables to her unmentionables. Well, the question came about: Did he do anything illegal? Did he sexually harass anybody? There was nobody home. So the answer to that ended up being no. But did he do anything illegal? That's the thing that's not so questionable in my eyes, even though the police in this case told him, "Oh, he had the right to be there and didn't do anything illegal." I would have demanded to speak to their captain or the senior officer on duty, because whoever chased them away with that was just blowing them off. Because the landlords or their workers, their employees, are not allowed to enter without prior permission. And in cases of emergencies like gas leaks, flooding, etc., those are the only times they could enter your apartment with using their pass key without prior permission. Because usually they'll get not usually, they have to get permission. They got to let you know in advance, at least. Hey, we're going to be spraying for insects or putting down traps for mice or whatever it is. Or doing maintenance of any other kind, or they have to give you advance notice of that. They can't just use their passkey to walk into your apartment anytime they want and surprise you when you come out of the shower. They have to give you advance notice. Otherwise, they're breaking an entry, and you could charge them with that. It's actually called a trespass complaint may be filed by the tenant with the local police department under New Jersey's criminal code for what they call defiant trespass under New Jersey statutes 2A 39-6. All right. And you could get that from the Truth in Renting booklet. The Truth in Renting booklet describes what the tenant's rights and obligations and what the landlord's rights and obligations are. And it has all kinds of resources for tenants here as well. Any questions that you have, from anything from putting up a satellite dish on the building to for your TV to can you have service animals, and can landlords charge fees, and resources if you lose your job for helping you, or if you don't have a lot of money for helping you pay your utilities or things of that nature, or free legal help that could be available for tenants. That all that kind of stuff can be found in the Truth in Renting booklet, which comes from the Department of Community Affairs. They publish this booklet and update it annually. Now, they don't print the booklet anymore, but it is available by PDF document in both English and Spanish. Here's a link to the actual booklet on the DCA's website. Okay. And then we have the, let's see, improvements. Can a tenant do improvements to the premises? This is also included in that Truth in Renting booklet. Can a tenant make improvements to an apartment that they're moving into or living in?
With the owner approval.
Only with the owner's approval. Look, a tenant can't even paint the apartment without the landlord's approval. The landlord got to give them approval of the colors and such that they're painting it with. Because listen, if you just let tenants paint whatever they want, they do some weird things. I've seen tenants paint rooms black. Why would you paint the walls black? I've seen. I had this when I used to be a superintendent. I had this one tenant. The landlord gave her permission to, so there's nothing I can do about it. But she was a Hello Kitty fanatic.
Uh-oh.
And Hello Kitty got that hot pink. So she painted her bedroom hot pink. And the landlord's like, okay, it's a wacky color, you could do it, but you have to sign an agreement that you are responsible for painting it back to a neutral eggshell color when you move out. And if you don't, you're responsible for the expenses for us to get it done. So when it came time for her to move out, of course her life was busy. She was a little diva. So her life was always busy and she couldn't be bothered with it. So she was like, oh, you take care of it and just take it out of my security. So I was like, all right. So I primed the apartment and I primed that bedroom and I painted it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it dried, the pink bled through.
Oh my God.
Priming and painting. And I was like, okay, let me put another layer of primer on there. It's bleeding through. Okay, how about another layer of primer, bleeding through? Maybe if I paint over it this time, it won't bleed through. Paint it over it, it bled through. So what am I in? 4 or 5 layers of paint already now? And it's still the paint and my labor, my time. I'm not doing this shit for free, right? So I went down to the paint store and I was like, dude, you got to help me out here. I got this lady, she painted this this bedroom hot pink color, and I got like 5 coats of primers and paints on it already, and it still keeps bleeding through. And the guy started laughing. He's like, yeah, he's like, with weird colors like that, he's like, what you got to do is you got to go darker first. He said, so what we got a special primer for that. It's actually a brown primer. So you got to paint it this brown primer, and then you could go with a lighter color over that brown primer. And so I needed to get this special brown primer to paint over it, which costs money. And then I could go back over it with the lighter color paint. So I still needed to go 2 more paint jobs over that apartment. So what are we at? 6, 7, 8 freaking layers of paint now. So she was shocked when she didn't get any of her security deposit back.
So you ain't think that paint would cause so much trouble?
Well, she should have painted it, right? I think she could have done a better job. She would have been doing the same thing. She would have been like, what the hell? I painted it, but it's not, it's pink as bleeding through. So But anyway, that's the tip on how to cover those weird, wacky colors. Yeah.
Victor,
Yes.
how about nail? Nail, and some people they put some big poster in when the uh,
Well, as long as, listen, you got a couple of nails in the wall for pictures and paintings and things like that. As long as you didn't leave a bunch of holes in the walls or tons
okay.
of nails sitting around there, I wouldn't worry about it.
But we don't have to ask, right? We can just do it, right? Few
Yeah,
of
those are
them
your
like that.
decorations. Yeah, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
not an improvement.
Okay.
Improvements like you don't like the lighting fixture that's on the ceiling, so you want to swap it
Okay.
with a ceiling fan lighting fixture. You need to
Okay.
get the landlord's permission before you do that because you're screwing with the electrical, and they're not going to want
Mm.
you to attempt to kill yourself by getting electrocuted with the rewiring. That needs to be done by a licensed electrician. They don't want you doing stuff like that on your own. All right. So,
Mm.
and if the landlord does give you permission to swap out their light fixture with a ceiling fan light fixture, can you take it with you when you leave?
Mm-hmm.
No,
No, no.
no.
That's the landlord's property now. They allowed you to swap their lighting fixture with the ceiling fan light fixture to do an improvement. Why would they give you permission to unimprove it? Now, what are you going to do? Just leave the wires dangling now? So
No,
you'd have
I'll
to,
put the one that she originally had in there, put it that back.
you got to get the landlord's permission to do it. And you wouldn't be able to do it anyway. They would want you to get a licensed electrician to do it.
Mm.
All right, so what about my blinds? I switched out all the blinds.
The blinds are yours.
I could take them, but as long as I put the ones that it was originally here back
Yeah.
up, right?
Yeah. If it had blinds there, like window treatments, those are personal things. Those are decorative, Unless
Oh.
the apartment came with blinds, then you got to leave whatever was there, if you remove them. Yeah. Okay, so trade fixtures, well, these are fixtures used to carry out a business, and trade fixtures are considered personal property owned by the business owner. All right, they're used for business purposes. However, if you don't remove those trade fixtures before the lease expires, those trade fixtures that are left behind become the property. Those trade fixtures become fixtures. Trade fixtures are personal property of the business owner. Fixtures are part of the real estate that the property owner owns. So it's possible for trade fixtures to become fixtures if the tenant did not remove them before the lease expires. Now they're the property. Now they're part of the property. They're part of the real estate. And who owns the real estate? The property owner. Okay. So if you're going to remove anything, you need to remove it before the lease expires. And if those fixed trade fixtures are like sinks, like specialty sinks or something like that, you can't just remove the sinks and leave the leaky pipes there. You got to cap them off behind the walls and do the proper plumbing, the way you got it. So an example of trade fixtures are barber's chairs, gas station pumps, sinks in a beauty salon, shelvings in the supermarket, those vent hoods and stoves in restaurants, things of that nature. So where it says improvements on page 240, write trade fixtures above that. Where it says improvements, right? Trade fixtures, tangible personal property / chattel. What is chattel? Tangible personal property.
Tangible.
Yeah. Tangible personal property. Not just tangible, not just personal, tangible personal property.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
This isn't the first time we learned about trade fixtures. We learned about this in chapter 6 or 7 too. Or was it 5? I forget, one of those chapters, 5, 6, or 7. No, it wasn't 7. It was 5 or 6. You got that?
Yes.
Okay. So maintenance of the premises, leases carry an implied warranty of habitability. That if a landlord's going to rent you the property, that it's habitable, it's in habitable condition. There is no condition that could cause a threat to the health or safety of its occupants. So the tenant must return the premises in the same condition as they received it. The landlord's responsible for repairs unless specified otherwise in the lease. You know, of course, the tenant is responsible for any damages that they do. And the DCA, that's the Department of Community Affairs, they inspect buildings with 3 or more units, not counting the unit the landlord lives in. So as long as there's 3 units available for rent, you know, the landlord's not living in one of them. Because if they're living in one of them, that's not available for rent, right? So 3 or more rental units available. Those need to be inspected by the DCA, those state inspectors, at least once every 5 years. Now, the industry lingo for that state inspection, we usually call it the green card inspection. Because when you passed inspection in the past, they give you a past inspection certificate on a card that was green. Okay, so the green card inspection, that's where that name comes from. Has nothing to do with immigration, okay? The green inspection is just because the card is green. Yeah, and it's required for buildings. What kind of buildings?
3
Residential.
units of course. Oh,
Yep. 3 or more rental units available, not counting the unit the landlord lives in, which is also the same buildings that we're required to give the truth in renting booklet to. Tenants in buildings with 3 or more rental units, not counting the unit the landlord lives in. Now, if rent is withheld by a tenant to force the landlord to make necessary repairs due to some uninhabitable or dangerous condition that they have not been fixing, that money should be, you don't blow that money. When you're not paying the rent, you need to put it aside. You're just withholding it temporarily until the landlord makes those repairs. And then after they make those repairs, you don't just continue making your rent payments from that day forward. You got to also pay the landlord all that back rent that you've been withholding from them. See, this is where a lot of tenants, they misunderstand the law. They know that they don't have to pay the rent. They could withhold the rent from the landlord until they make certain repairs. And a lot of them misinterpret this as, I don't need to pay rent until you fix it. And then once you fix it, I start paying rent from that day forward. Yeah, but you got to pay for all the back rent that you've been withholding as well. You don't get to keep your stuff in that apartment or live there for free because the landlord didn't do the repair. You're allowed to try to make the landlord suffer a little bit, to light a fire under their butt to fix things by withholding the rents.
but you still owe your back pay.
But you still owe that back rent. See, this is where tenants, if you ever go to the landlord tenant court, and just sit there in the back of the room and just watch the cases for maybe a half hour or an hour, you're going to start to see patterns develop, excuses from tenants. And then I could just imagine the judge's job there all day. You know, what a boring job. Like you could see the BS that's coming out of tenants' mouths for excuses. And you could see when there's a bad landlord versus one that's responsible, just by the way they present themselves in court, just by the way that they answer the questions. You know, you could be a judge after sitting there for an hour. You could figure it out how it goes. You know? Yeah, if it's so in situations like this, I've seen this by going there and being a fly on the wall in the landlord tenant court. I actually did it. I took the time to do it, and I just, sat there for an hour or so. And you'll see instances of this where the tenant said, "Oh, this was messed up. I didn't pay the rent because I was trying to force the landlord to do the repair." Okay, the judge says, "Well, did they do the repair? Did they do the repair properly?" Okay. Did you pay them all their rent? Yeah, I started paying the rent. Okay. but did you pay them all the rent that you've been withholding? Do you have that money in a bank account somewhere or in a pillow that you can pay them now? Well, no, I don't have to pay the rent. I just need to pay it after they fix the. No, 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 that's not how it works, my friend. If you don't have the money to pay them the back rent for the time you've been occupying that property, even though it was messed up, and you were trying to force the landlord to do the repair, you were still occupying it and you still owe them that rent. So if you don't have that rent, I have no choice. I'm going to have to order an eviction. Can you get that money? You know, you could hear the judges. They do this time and time again, trying to work with the tenant on it, but educating them at the same time. And some of them, you could tell they know the rule. They just don't care, and they're trying to play the system a little bit. All right, so let's do the highlights now about that. The implied warranty of habitability, who we need to, who the DCA does the inspections for, what buildings. And I wrote in the margin here, green card state inspection. Green card is the lingo. You're not going to hear that term green card on exams. You'll hear state inspection on exams. But when you talk
Okay.
to real estate agents out there in the real world, they're going to say, does the property got its green card? Is it up to date on the green card? So you need to understand the industry lingo in this regard, okay? Because this is a common one.
What is their green card is called what?
It's a state inspection.
Stated.
It's required at least once every 5 years to make sure the building and construction standards are up to code. I'll tell you what, those state inspectors are sticklers, though. Every time they come down to do an inspection, you could almost be guaranteed that they're going to order that work needs to be done. They always find something wrong.
Hmm.
I don't think I've ever had one that didn't.
That's why you keep everything in the back in your truck.
Well, I'm not the owner of the property. I'm not doing the repairs. The only thing I keep in my truck are those CO detectors and smoke and the CO detectors and the fire extinguishers.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I had to write it down. Okay. State. Oh, state. Prepare.
I never knew that. That's called the DCF.
Oh, furnace heat. Oh, they're also saying that all landlord furnaces heat from October 1st to May 1st to be 68 and at night 65.
That used to be on state exam. I don't know if it is anymore. I haven't had any students come to me and say that they've seen that question on exam. But then again, students don't come to me and tell me every question they see on exam. Only when they start failing the exam, they tell me there's this question and that question. I wasn't sure about that one, you know. But I seen back when I got my when I got my license, this used to be a question on exam, but I don't think it is anymore.
Still good information to know. I never knew that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so yeah, the state inspection, often referred to as the green card inspection, that's the industry's lingo for it, not the official name. It's required for any building with 3 or more rental units, not counting the unit the landlord lives in. The DCA, the Department of Community Affairs, performs inspections on behalf of the state. The state inspection must be performed at least once every 5 years for buildings with 3 or more units. And hotels and motels must be inspected at least once every 3 years. And those inspections can be spot inspections without any prior notice.
So
Landlords,
they're not gonna, mhm.
I'm sorry?
For motel, they're not gonna let you know, like no prior notice?
No, hotels and motels, the inspectors can just pop in and do
Oh,
the
wow.
inspection. Yeah.
I see.
Because listen, you got tenant changeover, it could be daily, you know. So they could do your place is a commercial place of business. It should be
be stay
ready. It
good.
should be up to
Yeah,
code, you know.
up to
So
date. Yeah.
you need to be maintaining your premises. And if you know that an inspector from the state can pop in at any given time without prior notice, you may be more adept to
Yeah.
keeping your place in better condition, right?
Mhm.
So
More alert. Yeah.
yeah.
Awareness. Yeah.
So when heat is included in the rent, this is that comment that you were talking about before on that previous page.
Mhm.
Between October 1 and May 1, it must be heated to at least 68 degrees between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. and at least 65 degrees at night. Now, when I read that in some classes, they're like, ooh, that's freezing. No, it ain't. 32 degrees is freezing. Okay.
That's cool, right?
Yeah. So
65.
if the tenant is not paying their rent, the landlord still needs to maintain these temperatures. But you know what? In buildings where the heat is included, it's, you know, I know somebody who's in an apartment building that they turn on the heat whenever the hell they want. The heat is kind of wonky. Sometimes it's drafty and it's colder than this in there. It's freezing, as a matter of fact. I gave somebody one of my portable heaters that they could have because you know, they got to fire up the big boiler unit whenever they fire it up, and are they you know, the heat may be hot in some units, and other units it's colder, you know, so it gets kind of tough. I know for the you know, for the complex, but either way, the tenants may be freezing in some of these units because they're not getting any kind of temperature anywhere near this. So you cannot turn off the water, heat, or gas or services if they are included in the rent and the tenant is not paying the rent.
Cannot turn off the water, heat, and gas.
Hmm.
Any service if included in the rent. What does that means? Cannot turn off the water.
Yeah,
Oh, got it.
your landlord cannot
Yeah.
turn off your water, your heat, or your gas services if included in the rent and the tenant is not paying the rent. That's like changing your locks or throwing all your stuff out on the curb. They can't do that.
Correct.
They want you out, they gotta evict you. So I mean, you're better off just getting different different meters for each unit, and the tenant's responsible for paying their own heat and hot water and such. But landlords that don't go and get those utilities separated, well, they're paying the rent for everybody because maybe they got one big furnace or boiler for everything. This is like with apartment buildings and complexes, right? But you could switch to individual heater units for each one, have their own meters. It's
But
just
here they are saying it's included in the rent, so they're not charging separately for water.
if included in the rent
Right.
and the tenant's not paying the rent, you can't shut it off. Okay.
Mhm.
So assignment, we've learned about assignment, we learned about novation, right? So assignment transfers a lease obligations to another. However, the original person named in the contract is never relieved of their original contractual obligations. Novation would relieve the tenant of any further obligations if the landlord permits it. So subleasing transfers the lease if the landlord permits it. But the original tenant's still responsible if the new tenant doesn't abide by the lease terms. An example is they're not making the rent payments. The original tenant is still responsible for making those rent payments. And of course, the tenant's also responsible for destruction of any premises. We know the different types of estates and land for leasing, right? What do we call the category of estates and land for leases? It's a leasehold estate or less than freehold. What are the 4 types of estates and land?
Listen,
What are the 4
Fee-
types of leasehold estates?
fee estate.
No, the leasehold estates.
Oh, the leasehold. Oh,
4 types of leasehold.
I'll start you off. An estate for
That-
years.
stay for a year.
Estate for years, estate from period to period, estate at will, and estate from sufferance.
Okay, you're a good reader.
Mhm.
You gotcha.
This stuff, okay? Those are the 4 types of estates, leasehold estates. But remember, how much notice does the landlord need to give a tenant to get out for an estate for years?
3 months.
None. What is an estate for years?
Oh, it has the
term.
end date.
Has an end date. You got to
Yep.
be out by the end date, so they don't need to give you any notice. What about a periodic estate? Well, it needs to be for varying periods. If it's an estate from year to year, 3 months notice, month to month, 1 month's notice, week to week, 1 week's notice. And if it's a tenancy at will, it's 3 months notice. So all we're highlighting here is I'm just putting a highlighted box on page 241 around the different notice requirements for the different types of leasehold estates. Now, we had this at the beginning of the chapter in each description of each individual leasehold estate. Here, it's just a description of the notice to quit for all the leasehold estates in one place. Okay, because you need to know. That Truth in Renting booklet that the DCA publishes every year, they publish this annually updated statement on the rights and duties of residential landlords and tenants in the form of a booklet, which is no longer printed. But it's available for download and you could print it on your own. It's available in PDF on the DCA's website. It applies to any residential property requiring the green card inspection. And which ones are those? The buildings with 3 or more rental units, not counting the unit the landlord's living in. So if it's a 3-family house and the landlord does not live there, it requires the state inspection. It requires you to give the green card booklet. I'm sorry, the green card booklet. The Truth in Renting booklet. And the Truth in Renting booklet should also be posted somewhere in the common area, like a hallway. It does not apply to commercial real estate. So here are the 2 places where you can get that. So I already gave you guys the direct link to the Truth in Renting booklet on the DCA's website. This is the link to the DCA's website. Oh, no, what did they do? Look at that. They changed the damn link. See, they're always changing this stuff. Or not always, recently, I guess. Why are they making all kinds of changes and moving crap around?
Because the law changes.
Landlord tenant information. It's no longer available in landlord tenant information page. Let's see. If I could locate it somewhere else, maybe now.
Even when we were on the slides, a legal principle of lease, that video is also not showing. It's saying the same message.
Oh, for which one?
The legal principle of lease, they talk about landlord enter apartment without permission of the tenant. That's the one.
Where was that at? A couple slides back or?
Yeah, slides number 30. That video is also not opening.
Video? Did you say video?
Yeah, the video.
Okay, well, I didn't have that video in the slideshow though. You went to their website and
Sorry, not the video. It's the link. Yeah, link. It's not opening.
could you share it with me in the chat window so I know what you're talking about?
Slides 30. Slides 30. Legal principle of leases. A trespass complaint may be filed by the tenant with the local police
Are you talking about the
department.
DCA booklet? Look,
it's a 30 slides.
hold on a
Legal
second.
principle.
This is slide 30, the one with the video on it.
Okay. Yeah, this one is not opening.
What, this one for the
Yeah.
booklet?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's-
shoot.
Yeah, it's not opening.
What are they doing? What are they doing over there? So we
Page
can
not
go to
found.
publications. Oh my God! Here, let me look it up on their website. Truth in Renting booklet. Let's see if we can search it on their website.
Truth in
There we
renting
go.
booklet.
Truth in Renting. All right. So here is the Truth in Renting booklet. They changed the link a little bit. There's the Truth in Renting booklet. Okay. It did open up. Looks like this. Truth in Renting. I just searched their website and it has all this information. All right. So I'll update that right here because they obviously changed it.
You just text us, right?
Yep, I just
Truth in
sent it.
but that is not opening. It's saying page not found.
What are you talking about? I just sent it to you.
Yeah, but that is not opening.
I just opened it.
It opened for me.
I just opened it.
The link that's in the comments chat.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a new message. I just got it. Yeah, it's opening.
okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, because I just searched their website and I located it. And okay.
Yeah.
But now I want to make sure that our class links Word document notes are up to date as well. So let me on open and new class links and notes. I got to update it there in that.
That's true.
So you guys could see here. We're going to be looking for the
next one
Truth
is
in Renting. All right, here's the booklet. That link has changed. So boom. Oh, it looks like I already had it updated in here, but not in that slideshow for some reason. All right. Let me see. Is there another place? Okay. There's another place here where I have that booklet. Yeah, that was wrong. Okay, so in an earlier chapter, I had the right link. I think I gave it to you in an earlier chapter, but let me make sure I got the right information in all these places.
Mhm.
And yeah, let me see, 11 places I got this thing in. Truth in Renting booklet. Boom. Yeah. Truth in Renting booklet.
So whenever page not found message pop up, it might be update, right? It's updated page.
Yeah, they may have changed the pages
They
on the
need the change,
website.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I updated it in the class notes document. Now you got to go back to the slideshow again, though, because where were we at?
We were at
we were-
legal principle of it's page number 38, slides
Assignment,
38,
This.
38. Is it?
Right after 38, 39. That's where we were, the Truth in
Yeah.
Renting booklet.
Right,
Okay.
39.
So
Sorry.
let me make sure it's updated there. Boom. Okay. That's the new Truth in Renting booklet, but this link was not working, right? So that's from the offices. So code,
Yeah, the first one. Yes.
NJ.gov, DCA, codes, offices. All right. So we got to try to
Both are-
find stuff on their website, which is pain in the neck.
Yes. Both are not working. Yes.
Let me see if I can find this, open this up again. Okay, so we go back to their website here. You know that I found it up here. Here's offices. Look at that.
Mm.
Okay, so offices of the Director, Bureau of Housing Inspection, state and local codes. How about
We are
these?
just looking for DCA, right? In New
Yeah.
Jersey. Mhm.
Maybe it's here.
DCA service portal.
No,
Okay.
that's not it. Man, they always manage to screw things up. All
I
right.
found State of New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. That's the one, DCA service portal.
Yeah. Yeah, let me
Okay.
search here for DCA.
I'm sending you.
I'm gonna,
Sending it to everyone.
I got it. It's just nj.gov/DCA.
And they shortened it.
DCA covers all kinds of stuff, but okay. For landlords and tenants, first-time home buyers, okay. Let's click on this one.
Foreclosure counsel.
This is the one that I wanted.
Oh,
The booklet, okay? So you could see the, yeah, they moved it around.
I
They-
see.
They just changed the links a lot for some reason.
So when we study in the after 1 or 2 months, or we've been like at that time, if we see that page not found, that means they updated the thing.
Well, yeah,
have
they
to
could,
find.
the government changes their websites around sometimes.
Yeah.
You just go over here, you go to search, and you search for what it is you're looking for. I just
Right,
typed in
right.
DCA, and it
Mm.
took me to the DCA's main page, which covers all kinds of stuff from affordable housing, all kinds of things you see here. Look about inflatables at amusement parks and insurance, to
Mhm.
filing Oprah requests, to foreclosure counseling, landlord tenant issue. So I clicked on landlord tenant issue, and it took me here. Here's another one we learned about, the first time home buyers program. That's the NJHMFA. Yep, HMFA. There you go. The home buyers program for down payment assistance. Okay.
Mhm.
Either way, here's the new page for landlord tenant issues. And it opens it up to Truth in Renting Act in English. Here's the booklet in English and Spanish.
Oh, wow.
And then all kinds of other information for them, from them. Tenant questions and resources, legal services, all that. So they basically were making the Truth in Renting booklet interactive on their own website. That's all he did. But
Okay.
they relocated, they changed the name of the page. So let's go Let's go back here. I'm gonna, this landlord-tenant information. There we go. It's updated.
Mhm.
And the class Word document here, the truth and renting, or the DCA website, right? DCA website here for code regulations. Nope. Ooh, 59. I'm not going through 59 results. So let's look up truth in renting because it was right next to that. That's just the truth in renting booklet. We got 11 results here. That's okay. Here's the DCA website, tenant information. That has to been changed. Boom. There we go. Updated. DCA website, landlord tenant, updated. DCA website, updated. This flood risk notice, I bet you that one's no longer working. Nope, it is. Okay, never mind. Landlord tenant resource page. Updated. Apparently I got that link several times. Tenant. I gotta arrange this where I can just switch them all out. Tenant. All right, I think I replaced them all now. Yep. Make sure. Yeah. All right, they should be all updated. Yeah, they are. Okay, so our notes are all good. They're good to go now. They're all updated. Let's go back to the slideshow. So everybody's got these two links now, right? The two correct ones. Just to make sure, I'll copy them both and I'll send them to you in the chat window there.
Mhm.
All right. So that's the latest. Make sure you're seeing the slide. You are. Okay, so we did not leave off there. So where did we leave off? Truth in renting booklet. Okay, we did this for the different estates, the notice. Then we talked about the DCA, the green card does not apply to commercial property. You could print the truth in renting booklet directly from the DCA's website. This is the link that works. And here's the new DCA website link where you could get that in English or Spanish. It is available. All right. Beginning March 20th, 2024, landlord must provide a notice to prospective tenants about the FEMA's special flood hazard area, moderate flood hazard areas, and actual acknowledgement of the rental premises if any of the rental premises, such as tenant parking spaces, have been subjected to flooding in the past, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, apparently on this slide, we're going to have to update that as well. The landlord tenant link. There we go.
Cool.
Let me just make sure all these other links are working right for us now too. So this one, let's click on the notice, see if that works. It does. It takes us to this risk notice.
There are two books. Truth in renting. There are two books. Means two links. I
English
see.
and Spanish.
Yeah.
Okay.
And flood risk notice.
Yep, that's the notice that link is working right there.
Right.
What the heck just happened to the slideshow?
We are on.
No, the slideshow just scrolled through
I know.
every slide on
I
me.
saw that.
I don't know
Yeah.
what the heck just happened right there. Okay, let's go back there. So I'm in edit mode here. So that's working. Let's see this Truth in Renting booklet. Is that the right link right there? If not, I want to make sure I got it. Yes, this is. Okay, that's the right link. The Truth in Renting booklet. Why do I have it twice over here? Truth in Renting booklet. That's the right link. And I don't know what's up with that. Okay. So DCA website. That's the correct link as well. Okay, so we got the correct links for all this and the flood risk notice itself. So here, I'll share that flood risk notice with you guys. Boom. Now let's go back to the full slide. All right. What the heck's going on? Good enough. So those are the resources. Let's just make sure that all these resources, oh wait, we already did. Those are all working. They're good in their Word document. Okay. So the Truth in Renting booklet, that needs to be given to who? It needs to be given to tenants in buildings with 3 or more rental units, not counting the unit the landlord lives in. So if there's 3 units available for tenants to be renting, those require the state inspection once every how often?
State inspection every 5 years?
Once every 5 years. Yep. So on page 242, where it says Truth in Renting, it's required to be given to tenants in buildings with 3 or more units, not counting the unit the landlord lives in. Okay. So the act requires residential landlords of dwellings with whatever it says there in the book. It says a little backwards. So that's page what, 242? It says more than 2 units. Well, what is more than 2 units?
3.
3. So why didn't they just write that? So I just whited it out and I wrote 3 with 3 units or more than 3 units if the landlord occupies one of the units. Okay. To distribute the Truth in Renting statement to each of their tenants at or prior to the tenant's occupancy. Page 242.
Truth in Renting.
Right. Let me know when you guys have that. Didn't it's on that. All right.
Yes.
So disclosure of owners and managers to the tenants and the municipality is required for emergency purposes. If a building catches on fire, fire department needs to know how many people were living there. Did we get everybody out? They've got records there. So when they have fires, their management checks to make sure so that they can let the firemen know to make sure they're not going back and searching and risking their lives in a building looking for someone who's not there, you know? So we need to keep accurate records of how many people are living in each unit. So when anytime there's a tenant changeover, the city, the landlord needs to get a city inspection to make sure that the building's got the smoke and fire detectors and CO detectors, and well, the fire extinguisher is no longer required, but some municipalities still require it. But they also have to get that permit, and when they file for the permit, they have to name all the adults and list, as far as children go, they still have to list the children living there too. All they got to do is put down, for instance, one female age 8, one male age 10. They don't need to have their names on file, but as long as they know, how many people are there, so they're aware, hey, did we get everybody out of this building or not? So we're not risking firemen's lives going into buildings trying to hunt down children that may not be there anymore because there was a tenant changeover, or that they know to look for these children and make sure we get a head count. So disclosure of owners and managers to the tenants and the municipalities for emergency purposes. The names and addresses of the owners, resident managers, they have to be on file with the government so they know how to reach out to the owners of the building. We also need to make sure that the tenants in high crime areas are aware that federally subsidized crime insurance is available for them through HUD. Now, what is a high risk area?
Where they have high risk crimes.
Is this subjective now?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there an actual guide on where is the high risk area? Where can I find a high risk area? Where can I see a map somewhere? Where's the high risk area?
Yes.
No. How do I know there's a high risk area that we need to inform them of federally subsidized crime insurance? I'm curious about that one. Right?
Wouldn't that kind of be in the discrimination kind of?
That's what I'm thinking. Well, I don't know. What's a high crime area? Right? Isn't that subjective?
Yes,
it is.
That could be in general.
I don't know why we need subsidized crime insurance from HUD. As it is, you guys can go to any insurance company and get renter's insurance that'll cover you for about $60,000 worth of goods for less than $100 a year. So I don't know, subsidize, how low are they going to subsidize that? I mean, how poor you got to be not to be able to afford less than $100 a year for $60,000 worth of coverage,
But there is something called crime insurance?
Apparently. Federally subsidized crime insurance. What is that crime insurance?
That's what I'm about to look up.
It's renter's insurance. It's renter's insurance. That's all it is.
Rental?
Why they have to put crime in front of it?
Because it's for high crime areas.
You said rental insurance?
Yeah, it's just renter's insurance.
Okay.
Because what does renter's insurance cover? It covers damages from fires, floods, and crime. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Americans with Disabilities Act, we learned about this in Chapter 4. When we were talking about the chapter on discrimination, the ADA. What does the ADA say? The ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, was a law that was passed that made it so that employers cannot discriminate against disabled workers in the workplace, disabled people in the workplace. Well, the ADA also has a section for what about disabled consumers that come to commercial buildings and stores and such, that they need to be handicap accessible. So the Section 3 of the ADA, or Title 3 of the ADA, prohibits discrimination in what kind of buildings? Commercial buildings, requiring them to be handicap accessible. So any new construction needs to be handicap accessible in its design. It's easier to make a new building handicap accessible than to have to modify an old existing one, making it handicap accessible, right? Yeah. So for existing structures, the ADA recommends reasonably achievable accommodations to provide full and equal access to the facilities and services. Now, reasonably achievable accommodations means at little cost without massive retrofitting or remodeling. It's useful to consult ADA experts and architectural engineers or designers. So what is a reasonably achievable accommodation? Well, lowering wall-mounted payphones where they can be found, lowering water fountains or installing a cup dispenser next to one instead of lowering the whole water fountain and doing all the whole plumbing. Just don't run out of cups. Otherwise, some ambulance chasing attorney is going to tell some disabled person, hey, go in there and check and see if they got any cups in the dispenser. If they don't, I want you to fill out this report and we're going to sue them, and we got them. Wow. So, and that's how they run businesses out of business. That's how they get their insurance up through the roof. They sue the businesses. Ambulance chasing attorneys don't just chase ambulances. They stand in front of strip malls, in front of little businesses, and they see, oh, somebody's walking with crutches or a wheelchair. You're handicapped. Hey, go in the store. Here's a checklist. Check off any things that you see that are not there, and then we could sue them and make you a lot of money if those things are not in the store. Okay.
Oh.
And that's what they did when this law was first passed. You still, now, I don't think you're going to see attorneys standing out in front of these businesses anymore doing that, but there's still those types of attorneys out there. So anyway, the ADA is there to make sure that commercial properties, you need to know what types of properties does the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, apply to, and it is commercial properties.
Can I say senior houses are included in this?
No, commercial properties.
Commercial.
This is what the requirement is for commercial properties. Now, when it comes to existing structures, what is the ADA's recommendation to make them handicap accessible?
Yes.
Reasonably achievable accommodations. That means without massive expense or massive retrofitting and remodeling and construction. So that's they recommend reasonably achievable accommodations, means at little cost without massive retrofitting.
That's so retro.
So let's highlight those things on page 242 and 243.
Is it determination in commercial properties? Take the ownership of term from massive.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Okay.
All right. So service animals, we already went over this whole bit in chapter 4 as well. Only 2 questions may be asked to somebody if they have a service animal. Is the animal required to work because of a disability? And what work or task has the animal been trained to perform? All right, so when it comes to service animals, landlord has to allow them in residential properties, no matter if they're service animals trained to perform and work a task, or if they are emotional support animals, the ESAs. Commercial properties, they're not required to allow emotional support animals, just the service animals that are trained to perform a function, like detect oncoming seizures or blood sugars levels are running low, or guide dogs and things of that nature for blind people. Okay, ADA, once again, reasonable, achievable accommodations. We already went over all this stuff, you know. Having automatic door openers or intercoms for second story businesses where they could reach out to them, lowering public telephones, permitting guide dogs, adding grab bars to restrooms and stalls, providing personal shoppers to help with people, adding ramps, things of that nature. So rental referral agencies, rental referral services. Remember, we went over this at the end of chapter 1. You must check to see if units are still available. If you advertise that property, you need to check with the owner every day to see if one of those units are still available, because the owners in these apartment complexes have their own rental offices where they could have rented them out on their own. So we can't continue advertising a property as available when in fact it's not. If it's an in-house only listing that's not advertised, where people just come in, they see it in-house, we need to check once every 3 days with the owner to see if one of those units are still available. This is for apartment complexes, okay? That's the rental referral services, or rental referral agencies. Okay. And this is for so rental referral agencies, they find renters for apartment complexes. This isn't like for your 1 and 2 family houses that are available for rent. They go out to apartment complex owners with hundreds of units. They got their own rental office. Rental referral agencies specialize in dealing only with renters. So they create those floor plans and they get the pictures and they get all the information they gather, and they do nice write-ups of these buildings and complexes and their features, and then they try to get renters for them, and if they do, they get into an agreement with the building owner that they're going to pay them a rental referral fee if anybody signs a lease. So advance fees of more than $25 we also need to put into escrow. Here's one example of a rental referral agency, bestrentnj.com, right? They basically partner up. So on their websites, if you go to their websites, you can see the different buildings. It looks like they're dealing with a lot of newer construction these days. Let's see if we can find some older ones here. They deal with 85 communities. So let's look at some of those. Yeah, let's look in Woodbridge. They probably got some older ones there. Well, it looks like they got some newer ones too. Gill Lane. Okay, this is a little bit older one, so we could click on that one. And you see they take some nice pictures inside. They take the nice outside pictures, the tennis courts, the features of a nice empty apartment. And then they got these, they show you the square footage and the rental prices. For a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,800 square foot. That's actually kind of big, 1,800 square foot.
That's old.
But $3,200 a month, that's a mortgage payment and then some. Where can we get buyers for houses if we ever need buyers for houses? Advertise at apartment complexes, silly. Okay. So you see how to get this professional photography? They make everything look really nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I was to go on this website and I was to click on it and I'm interested, how would the real estate person get the $25?
Well, this is their website. You would have to set up the appointment with them to go do the showing. Look,
Oh, okay.
2-bedroom with a rec room. Let's take a look and see. See how they got the floor plans here on their websites, all nice and fancy. For the different units, they got the different floor plans they show you. They
These
take
are all apartments, right? We are
yeah,
looking
these
for
are all
apartments.
apartments.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But they got the room sizes they show you here. They got the floor plan layouts for all the different units.
Mhm.
Let's see. Let's select the unit and apply. What's our move-in date? What have you? You know. Now, if a unit is not available here, if there is no unit that's available, see, look at that. You see how they fill out the rental application? Like you could fill out the rental application right here. It's
Oh.
on the Best Rent NJ's website, Gill Lane dash Best Rent NJ. So they put together these websites that make it easier for them if they're interested.
Mhm.
And they show you the apartment features, the community features, what's close and nearby, what's unique about this. I guess local news even. They show you a map about in the vicinity, what's around it, what kind of other properties, shops, schools, etc., fitness, all that stuff, and other communities nearby that you could check out as well. And this is what they specialize in. This is all they do is rentals. That's what a rental referral agency does.
Okay.
All right, you guys got these notes and highlights?
Yes, but let me just ask you, this are we looking for apartment? Is the same way we can do for townhouse, Middlesex County townhouses like that to rent?
Well, if they have rentals, the townhouses, that's just the architectural style. You got to look at the complexes. Some of them may be townhouses. I don't know. That you're just talking about an architectural style, whether it's for rent or not. If they have them here and they're for rent, you got to look at the properties that they have.
But
Yeah.
I don't think these are all apartments. I don't think so. These are
Well, what is an apartment? Let me ask you, what is a townhouse?
oh yeah.
It's an architect.
It's
It's a style.
multi-level attached housing. That's
Okay,
all.
okay. It's a main
But-
website. I just have to
yeah,
click in. Yeah,
Huge new townhomes in Bayonne. Right?
right. Okay,
So
okay.
yeah, I mean it's
Means
just
I have to select it. I have to select it what I am looking for.
yeah. I mean you're looking for a specific architectural style. Well, look at the different buildings. Well, that's Ewing. You said
Wow.
Middlesex area you're looking, right? So
Mhm.
towns, well, you could select like Edison, how many bedrooms you want. Let's just say you need 2 and click on go. And here's all the ones with 2 bedrooms available in Edison.
A 3-bedroom was $4,000.
Oh, this is also apartment came when we look for the town. Okay. This
Okay.
is Hilltop. Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
Rent control laws, not all municipalities have them, but these are laws set by each municipality, and not all municipalities have rent control laws. Rent control laws are put into place to prevent abusive landlords from taking advantage of tenants. It controls raising the rents or charging late fees or evicting tenants so that they get someone else in there that's going to pay a higher rent, things of that nature. That's the purpose of rent control laws. But we all know the road to hell is paved with the best of intentions, right? So licensees should be careful when showing rental properties for sale to investors. They should use caution before telling them that the rents are below market rates and can be raised. If the municipality has rent control, they may not be able to, and that's why those people are probably selling this investment property because they're not able to raise the rents in line with the costs of maintaining these properties over time. So rent control laws can be bad in the long run. They could be good initially, but in the long run, they could have a negative effect to them because the landlords aren't able to raise the rents in line with what's required to maintain them, to pay the taxes and the mortgages and to maintain the building and to make a living. So what do you think a landlord's going to do? Throw money into the building to maintain and fix up the building, or feed their family?
Feed their family.
All right. So in the long run, when you have municipalities that have rent control, they may start letting buildings go to waste and crumble and fall apart and not maintain them as well. Because this is still a business for them. They need to make money off of it. They need to feed their families, you know. And that's the one negative aspect of it. Let's say we got a good landlord that's not abusive, but they have rent control in that town. It makes it impossible for some building owners to be able to maintain those buildings based on the rents that they're collecting. So individual communities set their own rent control regulations, and some form of rent control is in effect in almost 1/4 of the state's municipalities. Most limit allowable yearly rent increases. To encourage construction of more housing units, new construction is exempt from rent control while an initial mortgage is still in effect on the property. Okay. So although rent control clearly benefits tenants, many argue that in the long run it can hurt them because it could discourage investors from putting up rental housing and could cause hardships to landlords who cannot bring rents up to fair market values, encouraging them to let buildings deteriorate and eventually be abandoned, like I was saying.
Mhm.
So who cannot be evicted from a condominium conversion where you're converting apartment buildings or multifamily houses to condos? Remember, those
Private.
62 those people who meet all of these requirements, age 62 and older, or disabled persons that lived there for at least 2 years before the conversion began, and their annual income is no more than $50,000 per year or 3 times their county's average income. If they meet all those criteria, they can remain there as tenants for the next 40 years, and they cannot be evicted just because you want to sell the unit and convert it to a condo. That's not the first time we've seen this slide. It's like the third.
Right.
So let's do the highlight here in this chapter about condo conversions on page 245. I just wrote condo conversion evictions next to that, and I highlighted this. This is showing who cannot be evicted from a condo conversion.
Oh, here.
Let me know when everybody's got it, though, okay?
Did we do poll?
Did we do what?
The poll.
I don't know. I'll throw one out there. Whoop, 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 whoop. Wrong button.
Oh. Here's number. What is that? Coding condo conversion.
There is an attendance poll out there for whoever it is that did not answer it yet. Just want to wake you up,
Hmm.
whoever that may be.
With failure to pay rent. Most eviction.
A poll, attendance poll. Last call for the attendance poll. We're going once, going twice, going thrice. You missed it. All right.
Where property is being converted.
So you guys got these highlights in?
Yeah.
Yes.
So now we learn about something called constructive eviction. Sounds like the word construction in there, right? So that's exactly what it is. When there's problems with the construction that create an uninhabitable condition, and the landlord is failing to make those repairs to fix it. This is where a tenant can legally terminate their lease early and not be in breach of contracts. But you got to be able to show that you tried reaching out to the landlord. The landlord just was not making the repairs. So this is an action taken by the tenant legally to terminate their lease early. If the landlord fails to provide basic services or make essential repairs when there are uninhabitable conditions. The tenant must notify the landlord there's a problem. They're not mind readers, so you got to treat them fairly too. Let them know that there is a problem. I say this because I can't tell you how many times I've come across tenants that are constantly bitching and complaining about their landlord being horrible landlord to reach out to the landlord and tell them there's a problem. What do you expect them to read your freaking mind? You know, this is how tenants act sometimes. So you got to let the landlord know that there's a problem in the first place. And then if they don't make those essential repairs, you move out and then stop paying rent. And then notify the landlord you're terminating the lease early due to constructive eviction and you want all your security deposit back. So the landlord must return all those security deposits. So here's an example of a case that I had once where it was a landlord I got a listing for to rent a basement unit apartment in what was legally registered as a 2-family, but it was really a 1-family with a basement that he just stuck an outside door with the stairs to the basement. But it was grandfathered as a 2-family in Edison. So I found a young girl who was a single mom, newborn baby. She rented the unit because it was clean and it looked nice. But after being there for a couple of months, she was bathing her newborn in, they bathe them in those plastic tubs, whether it's in the sink or they put it in the tub. They got those little tubs for the babies. Well, she had it in the tub, and she said that while she's bathing the baby, this is where she first noticed this, that every time they flush the toilet upstairs, it comes out into her tub.
Ew.
Yeah, it was right. That's not exactly a safe or habitable condition now, is it?
No.
I would be freaking out and I would be so angry. I'm bathing my newborn child and then urine and feces are coming into the tub. That's disgusting. Let alone whether you're standing in the shower and that stuff is coming by your feet. Oh. So basically what happened here is, the sewer pipe main going to the street broke on the guy's property. So it's not the city's responsibility to fix that. It's on the property, on your property where the pipe broke. So it's the landlord's, the owner's responsibility to fix it. The thing is, he didn't like spending money, and this is about a $2,000 repair or so. So every time they flushed the toilet upstairs, it would come down through the sewer main, hit that blockage, and then back up to the lowest point, which is the tub in the basement. So that's why it was going in there, and then it would slowly drain out. So that was the deal. And she contacted him many times. So she called me up. She's like, Vic, what do I do? She's like, the landlord's usually great with communications. He doesn't like to talk on the phone, but he's great with texting and email. However, he's been ignoring me because I've been sending him messages for some time now about the, every time they flush the toilet upstairs, it comes out of my tub. That's disgusting. I was like, yeah, that's definitely an uninhabitable condition. And he's ignoring you. Can you document the fact? How long have you been trying to reach out with him? She's like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, there's a couple things you could do. I was like, you could stop paying rent until he does the repair, you know, or what you could do is yeah, because she said, you know, at this point she's like, you know what, I don't even want to be here anymore. I was like, okay. Do you have anybody you could move in with, friends, family, or coworker, or somebody that you could move in with temporarily until we find you another place? And she's like, yeah, I got a girlfriend. I was like, okay, if you could move out first, move all your stuff out. Make sure you have documentation of all your communications with your landlord, though. Keep that because you're going to need it. And then, you know, the health department in Edison manages the rental inspections. So before you do anything, I would suggest going down and filing a complaint with the health department, you know, and then move all your stuff out and then stop paying rent after you're moved out. And then notify the landlord you're terminating your lease due to constructive eviction. You got to use that terminology and tell him you want all your security deposit back. And then there's not a damn thing he could do about it. Okay. But before you do this, this is legal advice, and I'm not an attorney and I don't want to jam you up. I'm going to give you the number of an attorney. Give this guy a call. Tell him I told you to call and this is the situation. And I just want to make sure that I told you to do things the right way because I don't want to get you in trouble. So she did that. The attorney said, yeah, he told you the right advice of what to do. And then so she did it. And when she went down to the health department in City Hall, there's two girls down there that handle those rentals, and they had to look up the file to see who the owner was. And the one girl goes to the other, you know, after hearing this girl's story. The one girl behind the desk says to the other girl, she's like, guess who it is? And then she was like, no. And she's like, yeah, it's Chester. And like they know him by first name. Like the guy owns a lot of rental properties there. And apparently he likes to slap paint on stuff and make it look nice, but really it's all messed up and there's problems. And he won't do any repairs until they force him to. They start threatening with fines and penalties before he'll do any repairs. So that's a good thing I told her to get out of there, you know. And when she got out and she requested that money back, guess who I got a call from?
The
Good old
landlord.
Lester gave me a call. Yeah, and he was yelling and screaming about. He didn't know that I was talking to her, by the way. He was yelling and screaming that the tenant that I got him, that he paid me a commission for a tenant who was going to be there for the full year. And the tenant wasn't there for the full year, so he wants his commission back.
No.
I was like, wait a minute. First of all, I earned my commission when I advertised your property and I found you a tenant that was a ready, willing, and able tenant. We got the city inspections done. The lease date came about. She got the keys. You got the money.
Deal is done. I'm out of
Landlord
here.
tenant issue now, buddy, because you can't keep your tenant because you choose to be a slumlord. Yeah, I know. She called me. She told me what was going on over there. So because you choose to abuse your tenants like this and act like a slumlord, you don't come back yelling at me that you want your commission back. I know when I produced a ready, willing, and able tenant, and now it's a landlord-tenant issue. So I earn my commission because you can't keep your tenants and refuse to treat them properly. That's your problem. You know, he's yelling about how he's going to sue me and all this stuff. I was like, listen, I was like, first of all, she told me what was going on, and I don't want to deal with you anymore. If this is how you're going to be treating tenants, I'm not going to be getting you good tenants that you could just be abusing like this. I'm not going to get a bad reputation by working for a slumlord. So if that's the way that you're going to be acting and treating tenants, don't call me no more. I don't want to deal. I'm going to sue. Click.
Bye.
Now, he kept telling me, you know, he kept threatening to sue me, throwing his weight around because this guy is also a lawyer. So he should know better.
Right.
you know. So yeah, I basically told him to stick it where the sun don't shine. I left out a little bit of that part there, and I told him to stick it. I don't want to deal with you. You're treating this girl with a newborn baby like this. That's disgusting.
But you
So
want the children or anybody else bathed in with feces?
yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
disgusting.
anybody, but especially a girl with a newborn baby. She's bathing the baby in the tub, and you got urine and feces coming. Come on, man.
Better sue somebody. He need to sue himself for allowing that to happen.
Yeah. So, but anyway, you need to know the rules, and if you know the rules, like I did, you can be confident that he can't sue you, that he's not going to sue you, and tell him to stick it. You don't need to deal with everybody, right?
No.
So, we call a type of eviction where the tenant takes action to end the lease, to terminate the lease due to uninhabitable conditions. Constructive eviction. That's what it's called. Constructive eviction. You need to know this type of eviction. You will get an exam question on it. And constructive eviction is different from actual eviction. This is the normal type of eviction that the landlord usually takes against the tenant. Constructive eviction is an action that the tenant takes to get away from a tenant, to terminate the lease early due to uninhabitable conditions. So, suit for possession, also known as actual eviction, this is the normal form of eviction that the landlord takes against a tenant. And what is eviction? It's the process of the court revoking the tenant's right if the tenants breach the terms of the lease. So the landlord files for what's known as a summary or dispossess proceeding, and the landlord must provide a notice to quit to the tenant before filing for eviction. If it's for violating the terms of the lease other than non-payment of rent. Because for non-payment of rent, no notice is needed to be provided to the tenant. So, how much notice is needed to be provided to a tenant before a landlord can file for eviction for a tenant breaking some of the lease clauses? Well, it depends on what it is. But the only one that we need to know for exams is no notice needs to be served for non-payment of rent. The landlord can immediately file for eviction if the tenant's not paying the rent. They don't need to send a notice out to the tenant that they didn't pay the rent. They know they didn't pay the rent. Okay. You could just start that filing for the eviction. So on the next page, there's going to be what I call the landlord's guide for giving tenant notice to quit before filing for eviction. I know it's a mouthful, but it's descriptive. So, we're not there yet. Okay, so let's first do the highlights on constructive eviction and suit for possession, the actual eviction. Let's first do that, and then we'll get to that guide that's right underneath that. And I wrote next to constructive eviction that this is an action taken by the tenant to legally terminate the lease early due to an uninhabitable condition.
I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Everybody got?
1 second.
Okay.
Okay, I'm already. I'm good. Condition.
Okay, so here are the causes for eviction. Once again, the only one that a landlord does not need to serve proper notice is before filing for eviction is for non-payment of rent. But here's some other example: tenant's disorderly conduct, or destruction of the premises due to the tenant's gross negligence, or the tenant continues to violate landlord's regulations if they're included in the lease. The landlord needs to first serve what we call proper notice for them to quit doing whatever the lease breaking activity is that they're doing before the landlord can legally file for eviction. Because once you go to landlord tenant court, if the landlord files for eviction of a tenant, the court's first going to ask that landlord was proper notice served. And then they'll provide the paperwork showing that proper notice was served. Okay. If you go to that landlord tenant court, like I said, to just observe what's going on there, you'll see one or two of these cases happen as well, too, where the landlord's trying to evict the tenant and the landlord's basically saying, actually, you'll probably see many of these. You may miss it if you don't pay attention to what the judge is saying, because he'll talk to the landlord or the landlord's attorney and say, well, was proper notice served? And they'll say, yes, Your Honor. And they step forward and they give him paperwork because they know the deal already, how it works. You could observe this and you could see learn how this works after a while. So on the bottom of page 245, continuing on to page 256, you see this guide. I got this version from an older book or the last version book where it was all on one page. Now it's split between two. Okay. So what I did is right above it, landlord's guide for giving tenant notice to quit before they could file for eviction. Now, the only thing here that you need to know for exam purposes is non-payment of rent, notice to quit need not be given before the suit is filed. Okay. But for any other reason, they need to serve proper notice. We don't need to know and study this guide. This is just if you're going to be dealing with landlords and tenants or working in property management. It's good to have a guide like this handy. And you got one right here in the book, so why not?
The only first line.
Yeah, just the first bullet point there. But right what this is, because this is a handy guide that could be useful for you in your business, actually, if you don't forget about it. You're not going to get this on exam. The only thing on exam possibly is that no notice to quit needs to be served before filing for eviction for non-payment of rent. And I got a link down here to another show that was really interesting on TV. It used to be there used to be a TV channel called Spike TV. You guys remember that? It was actually like a guys network. So it was like all kinds of guy shows for guys, but they had some interesting programs there. There was this one called The World's Worst Tenants, and it was basically a reenactment of the landlord of these guys. I forget what they called themselves, but they had a company where they were the intermediary between landlords and tenants. So anytime a landlord had an issue with a tenant not paying rent or the tenants making complaints about other tenants or whatever, they would go down and see what was going on and introduce themselves to the tenants. And it was interesting. It was a three-man crew here. It was basically this one guy who was a former Marine. He's all big and buff and built out. Then he had his other buddy. He was kind of big, but looked like a pipsqueak compared to him, the musclehead. And then the guy's wife was there as well, which I think she was a former cop. So they would go down all the time and deal with any issues with tenants, and they had plenty of muscle if they had any problems with them. And so these were basically reenactments, and some of them are very interesting. It was a very entertaining show. It was on the air for several seasons, and they actually had a renewal for another entire season because it was so good, the show. But I think there was a fight between one of the show people and one of the crew members, the film crew, and then a lawsuit came between the two over the fight that they had, and then it never came back on the air. So anyway, that show was called The World's Worst Tenants, and you can still see these episodes on YouTube or Tubi TV or whatever. Here's a link where you can watch all the episodes. I think I have this in the ClassLinks Word document as well for you. I think so. Well, let me close some of these windows out. I got like a million windows open over here. Jesus.
You found your dream lake pump.
All right. Yeah. Where is that? I think I may have closed it. All right, whatever. So let me get it just from the slideshow and I could share this with you guys. Here's another TV program you could watch either on your computer or your TV. And it's quite entertaining. By the way, anybody watch The Money Pit yet?
Watch which one?
The Money
The Money
Pit?
Pit. Nope.
You'll enjoy it. All right.
Movie.
So now we're going to go over the types of lease. It says types of leases. I wrote next to this payment and what's included, because that's what they're talking about. This is not really when they're talking about types of leases. They're talking about payment and what's included. Remember, we already went over leasehold estates at the beginning of this chapter. Now this is talking about the types of leases, the actual types of contracts, which discuss the payment and what's included. So you have a gross lease. It's common for residential. The lessee is the tenant. They pay their basic rent, and the lessor or the landlord pays property charges, taxes, repairs, and insurance connected with the property. A net lease, this is common in commercial and industrial property. There's a variant of that called the triple net, and that's expressed by writing just 3 capital N's. NNN, that's triple net. This is the lessee, the tenant, pays the basic rent plus all or most of the property charges, except mortgage financing. And the lessor, that's the landlord, they pay some property charges. Maybe. Yeah, like the mortgage. And then we have a percentage lease. This is common on retail properties, where the tenant, the lessee, pays the basic rent plus a percentage of their gross sales. And the lessor, the landlord, may pay some or all of the property charges. So just write in there these little notes that I have and do the highlights here. And then we'll move on and we'll get into these types of leases a little more depth.
And what you said, N, what is that? Net lease?
That says NNN. That NNN, you just call it a triple net. Because this is a net lease. So NNN is triple net. It's an abbreviation for a triple net lease. I'll explain what that is in a moment. Just take down the notes now. I'll do the explanation in a moment.
Got it. Accept.
An obligation to pay a fixed rent. Oh, okay, that's a good way of looking at it.
Hey, everybody got these notes and highlights?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm waiting on you guys. You gotta let me know what you guys are doing over there. You gotta let me know. All right. Okay, so Types of leases, payment and what's included. I've got my notes here, my explanations for the same stuff you guys just highlighted. So we'll start off with the gross lease. This is common in residential leases, but it could be used in commercial. The tenant pays a fixed rent and the landlord's responsible for the property, for maintaining the property and the property's expenses. Okay, they pay all for all the repairs and maintenance connected with the property. Tenant, of course, is responsible for any damages and whatnot. In a net lease, the tenant pays the rent and some of the property charges, whatever is agreed to in the lease. Whatever was agreed to in the lease. And in a triple net lease, expressed as NNN, the tenant pays the rent and all the property expenses to maintain the property, like CAM charges and any repairs that are needed. They pay for expenses associated with the property taxes even. They just do not pay the mortgage loan. Okay, they're paying their rent. The tenant pays all expenses. In a triple net lease, the tenant is responsible for all property expenses, landscaping, snow removal, taxes, repairs, everything on the property the tenant is responsible for, except for the debt services, the mortgage loan. They're not making mortgage payments. So this is often used in commercial and industrial properties. Now, here's something I do not see in the book here. I'm going to make a notation. 2, 7. Because I don't see any definition about this in the book, but CAM, what are CAM charges? What is CAM? Well, CAM is Common Area Maintenance. That's what it stands for. So this is the Common Area Maintenance charge, like for the landscaping. Each tenant must pay their share of these fees proportionate with the total area that they're renting of the building. So if there's a building with many rental units, depending on the size of your rental unit, there'll be a total square footage. And like, for instance, here, let me give you my example. My school is 2,000 square feet. I am renting 5% of the total area of the building that I'm in. So I'm responsible for 5% of all the CAM charges on that property. Okay. That's the way they usually pass off those charges to the tenants. I'm responsible for 5% of the property taxes, 5% of the landscaping fee, 5% of the landlord's insurance on the building. Plus, I got to have my own business insurance. You know, that's the way that it works. So let's do the highlights for gross lease. The last sentence underneath, I know there's one more sentence underneath this after the where it says residential rentals, cross it out.
You said cross it out.
Yep. Yeah, I forget what are they doing here. I can't even read it anymore but it's one of these horrible tips that whoever did the last rewrite here. Remember, when a landlord has to pay all the property charges, the landlord thinks that's gross, making it a gross lease. That's a stupid tip. That's not going to help me remember anything. You know, I would suggest they remove that sentence altogether from the next version book because I think it's dumb. But a gross lease, the tenant pays their basic fixed rent, and that covers everything. So the landlord's responsible for all other property expenses. So this is the type of lease that's common with residential properties, right? You pay your fixed rent. If it needs, you don't pay the taxes, the landlord does, right? You don't pay any maintenance of the property for grass cutting or snow removal or things like that. The landlord should be handling that. Unless it's written in the lease that you do, of course, but this is basically, if the roof needs a repair, the tenant's not responsible for that. The landlord covers that. So this is what a gross lease is. The tenant just pays their fixed base rent. That's it. In a net lease, well, there's different variants of a net lease. A net lease, you could negotiate with the landlord of what you're paying and what the landlord's paying. So the landlord may be responsible for covering some of the expenses, some of the repairs and things of that nature. And whatever you guys negotiated. But in a triple net lease, the tenant's responsible for all the expenses on the property, except for any underlying mortgage, the loan. And then right underneath there, CAM, because CAM charges are passed on to the tenants with a net or triple net lease. Those are the common area maintenance charges on the property, the landscaping, the snow removal, all that stuff. The fee for the pressurized pipes for the water, for the sprinkler systems, and all kinds of stuff like that. CAM stands for Common Area Maintenance Charge. CAM charges are also part of, I guess, in residential properties too, like in condominium complexes, your monthly maintenance fee. Maintenance, common area maintenance. It covers the common area maintenance charge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the percentage lease, this is common in shopping centers, where the tenant pays a fixed rent, and they're also responsible for paying a percentage of their income, their gross income, to the landlord. So they pay the small fixed rent plus a percentage of their income they share with the landlord. Now, the landlord can write this up in many different ways in the lease. It could be that the tenant pays a small fixed rent and a total percentage of the income above a certain dollar amount, requiring that the tenant earn at least a minimum dollar amount, to make sure the landlord's making enough money on it. You guys ever go to Menlo Mall or Woodbridge Mall or any other shopping center like that, and you see there's a small little boutique store that looks like they're doing killer business. They're always mobbed, and it seems like they're doing great business there because they're always so busy. Mm-hmm. And they're there one day, and the next day they're gone. Next time you go to the mall, and they're gone, and you're wondering, what happened to that store? They were so busy. What happened to them? You guys ever see that before?
I say a lot with the little kiosks they have, like in the middle of the strip mall.
You know what? Probably, well, even one of the store units too, because the rents work the same. They're based on a percentage lease, where the tenant may pay a small fixed rent, like $1,200 a month, and they have to share a percentage of their total gross income with the landlord. And the landlord may have also a minimum set there that the tenant has to gross at least so much to make sure that the landlord's getting the amount, at least a minimum amount. Mm-hmm. And if that tenant is very busy selling whatever widgets, let's call the product that they're selling a widget, okay? So this tenant, this store here is very, very busy. People love the widgets that they sell, and they're selling a lot of widgets. But those widgets aren't that expensive. So all those sales that they're selling, they're making, it's not enough to satisfy the landlord's ferocious appetite for your money. So here one day, gone the next, because you're not living up to the lease contractual terms of, you know, maybe you got to pay $1,200 a month plus 5% of all your gross sales in excess of 30,000 a month, but you need to gross at least 50,000 a month, you know, but you don't gross to 50,000 a month. So then the tenant would be bye-bye. Okay, because they're not meeting the lease requirement. Okay, so here's how you calculate a triple net lease. You have a base rent per square foot. It's usually a charge per square foot. So let's just say that you're you got a place that you want to rent. It's going for $20 a square foot, and the CAM charge, whatever the actual charges are on the property, the tenant will pay the actual charges. But let's just say we ask the landlord for an estimate of what the historical average of the CAM charges, and they say, oh, it's about $5 a square foot. So we write down $5 here. And we're going to rent 2,000 square feet of space. So how is this calculated? Well, you don't go $20 plus the $5 times 2,000, because now you're not going to know what your base rent is. So we're going to calculate them separately. You've got 2,000 square feet of space, renting at $20 per square foot. So 2,000 times 20, that's $40,000. That's not a monthly charge. That's an annual charge. So we need to divide it by 12 months, right? Divide it by 12. So we now know that our monthly rent is $3,333.33. Wow, that's pretty interesting. And now the CAM charge, it works out to $5 a square foot. So let's find out how much more that's going to be. 2,000 square foot times $5 is $10,000 a year, divided by 12. That's an additional $833.33 a month.
Wow.
So now you can see your base rent is $3,333. Okay, well, that looked good. That looked affordable. You didn't factor in the CAM charge of another $833. Yeah, $5 per square foot. That's a lot for CAM. So now we got a total monthly rent fee that we need to pay just for the real estate of $4,166.66.
That's a lot.
So you need to know your business model, and if your business model will support this, and you'll still be able to run your business and have all your business expenses. Remember, this is just for the real estate. This isn't any other business expenses, employees, the electric bills and utility bills. Forget about getting into your advertising and marketing and whatever products it is that you're selling, your inventory and what have you. This is just for the real estate. So business owners need to factor in these costs. It's a huge expense. You need to factor in those costs to see if it's justifiable. And if it is, and you could handle that, hey, rent away. But if you're selling gelato, you know, that's a lot of gelato to sell each month just to cover the rent. This may not be the location for you. You need to do some serious negotiations with this landlord on getting that rent price down. Because are you going to be able to be profitable paying that kind of a rent? So, and these can be some realistic numbers that some of these places charge too. You know, like for a real estate brokerage, or for a real estate school, or for any type of office space, usually. That's a pretty big rent to pay. All right, let's take a look at. So we already went over percentage lease. So now here's just my slide with my explanations, my direct, straightforward explanations. That it's common in large shopping centers. The tenant could pay a small fixed rent plus a percentage of the gross income. a percentage of their gross income in total, or perhaps above a certain figure. And the landlord could add a provision that the tenant must gross a certain minimum in sales. The rent may vary according to the nature of the business and the rental agreement. Yeah. If you ever call up and you see a property available for rent and it's for commercial, and you call up to find out how much rent is, they're going to ask you first, what kind of business is it? Well, what does that have to do with how much I pay the rent? Tell you, this is the way landlords do this. You call up and you tell them what your business, you call up and ask what the rent is. They're going to ask you, well, what do you want to put there? What's the business that you have? Why? Well, it will affect how much they're going to charge you.
You broke up. Say that again.
It will affect how much they're going to charge you. It will affect how much they will charge you.
Depends on what type of business you have.
And for some businesses, they know, what you're probably around what your income is going to be. And they're going to be like, oh, no, we don't rent for that. We don't want that business. Because they know it's not going to be profitable enough for them, or you're going to have a tenant that's struggling to pay the rent, and they're going to eventually have to evict them. So they try to avoid it altogether. This is why you see some commercial properties are vacant for years. They're waiting to get the right tenant in. So over here it says other lease types. This is not a type of lease. It's more of a provision that is added into leases, like a variable lease. So if you have a long-term lease, let's just say we have one that's not too long-term. Let's say a 5-year lease. A variable lease would add provisions that say, okay, the first year, this is the rent. But after that, it goes up 1 or 2%, or a certain dollar figure. So you have predefined rent escalations written into your lease. So you could see year 1, it's going to go up by this much. Year 2, it's going to go up by this much. Year 3, it's going to go up by this much. Year 4, it's going to go up by this much. So that's what we call a variable lease. You could see in advance what your rents are going to be years down the road, because it has built-in rent escalations. Or they could work it out a different way. They could write in the lease for long-term leases that how much your lease goes up will be dependent on what the Cozy Index says, as published in the Sunday New York Times on the first or second Sunday of the month of the anniversary of the lease. Okay? So a Cozy Index is a cost of living index. So if the cost of living percentage, whatever it went up by, that's how much your rent is going to go up by. That's probably not the fairest way for a landlord to do it either, though. So I would never sign a lease that was tied to a cost of living index. First of all, you'd never know what your rent is until that day comes around. How are we experiencing inflation at that time? Well, your rent is going to go up a lot. Okay, so that's what a variable lease is. Okay, now ground lease is also a triple net lease. Because a ground lease, what is a triple net lease? It's one where the tenant's responsible for paying the rent and all property expenses.
All property.
Okay, so what is a ground lease? Well, you're renting the ground, the raw land, just the ground. And
Just
you're
the
going
ground.
to construct a building on it. Now, when you construct a building on a raw land, is that going to increase the value of the property?
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to raise the taxes?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is a triple net lease. The landlord's not going to pay for that. So If a tenant rents the ground, ground leases are usually long-term leases. It better be a long-term lease if you're going to be shelling out all the money to construct a building on it and a parking lot and paving and all those running all the utilities to it and everything. You better be renting it a long period of time that you get your money's worth out of it. It is not uncommon for ground leases to be 50 to 1,000 years. 1,000 years? Who lives to be 1,000? Nobody. Nobody. However, you could have some sort of a fund or a business or something that could live for a long time, right? The people die, but the businesses live on, right? So here's some examples of some famous ground leases in New York City. The Empire State Building. Oh my God, could you imagine that iconic building built in the 1920s, the Empire State Building? Can you imagine constructing a building like that on land that you don't even own? You better get a long enough lease for it to pay for itself. Well, what about the MetLife Building, the Chrysler Building, the World Trade Centers that are no longer there? They were taken down by the terrorist planes, right? Those World Trade Centers, both of those buildings were built on land that was not owned by the people who constructed the building. They just got long-term leases on those properties. So the land is owned by the Port Authority of New York. So don't confuse a land contract, which is a type of seller financing, with a ground lease. A ground lease is just a long-term lease where the tenant constructs a building on it. And it is a type of triple net lease because you're going to also be responsible for all the maintenance of that building and the additional expenses like taxes that would arise, the snow removal and all that stuff. So you do need to know what a gross lease is, what a net lease, what a triple net, what a percentage, and what a ground lease is. Don't worry about the variable lease stuff here. And then lastly, we got a mineral lease. Sometimes they're called oil or gas leases as well, depending on what the mineral is, right? So landlords basically rent the land to a tenant who tries to extract minerals from the ground. So land leases and mineral leases and oil and gas leases, they're very similar to percentage leases because you're leasing the ground with a further agreement with the landlord that whatever minerals you're trying to extract from the ground, you're going to share a percentage of that profit with the landlord. And they usually do have a minimum requirement that you do get out of the ground. Have you guys ever watched shows on TV like Alaskan Gold Rush or any of those programs where you got those modern day gold diggers out there? They're renting somebody's land, and then they got all this heavy equipment there moving all this dirt trying to find gold, and they're running it through a conveyor belt it's just like a giant sluice box to try to pan for gold, but they're running tons of dirt through it. They usually get very nervous on that show if you ever watch it. When they say, "Oh, we got a call from the landlord," the supervisor says, "Oh, we got a call from the landlord. They're going to be coming next week," and everybody gets nervous. They stop all the digging and production, and what they start doing is running just the dirt that they've dug so far through the machinery to try to do a final count of how much gold they have right now, because the landlord's going to want to know where they stand, how much gold they extracted out of the ground. So now they're all nervous about how much they have. Because if they didn't dig enough gold and find enough gold, the landlord can say, "You know what? I'm going to kill the lease with you. You got to get off my land. I'm going to get somebody else on here who knows how to find the gold and get it out of the ground." And that's how these leases work. You're going to be digging for your gold, but the landlord has an agreement that you're going to share a portion of it with them, but you need to get a certain amount. Okay. So that's how these mineral leases work. Similar to percentage lease. All right. So let's do the highlights now and put the notes next to variable, ground, and oil leases. Just write / mineral lease there. There's also a triple net lease there, and provisions added to long-term leases.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I keep hearing you guys say okay, but it looks like you're all still writing. So are you
Okay.
guys done or are you guys still writing?
Okay, good, good. Nice.
I'm getting mixed messages from you. You're saying okay, okay, and I keep seeing you guys writing. So are you good? Are you done?
We all done. We
All right.
all done.
Lunch.
All right.
I think it is time for lunch.
It's time for lunch.
I don't know. It
Yeah.
depends.
Yeah.
Chapter. Let's kill this chapter first, really.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I can rush through this. We could be done with it in a couple minutes. We'll finish this off and then we'll do the lunch. Okay, look at this building. That's the Empire State Building. Can you imagine constructing this building on property you don't even own?
Mm, mm, mm.
Just look at it in awe for a moment. This is a iconic building built on land they didn't even own. They were leasing it. Still are. It's a ground lease. The land that this building is on is owned by the Port Authority. So, functions of a property manager. Well, it's to maintain or increase the value of a property while generating income as an agent for the owner. Usually I ask this question to people. I say, hey, what is the primary function of a property manager? And people say, oh, you got to get tenants to fill vacancies. You got to evict tenants that aren't paying the rent. You got to do repairs. You got to do snow removal, landscaping. It's like, whoa. You're micromanaging. You're too close to it. Try to step back and look at the bigger overall picture. What is the primary function of a property manager? Now, it does include all those little details you're talking about, but that's not the main function. That's not the main goal. Your overall main goal, if you were to step back and look at it for a second, is to maintain or increase the value of a property while generating income as an agent for the owner.
Oh, okay.
Now, doing all those duties does, in effect, do this, right?
Yeah.
So things like securing suitable tenants, collecting rents, caring for the premises, budgeting and controlling operating expenses, hiring and supervising employees or independent contractors who will then become independent contractors or employees who work for the property owner, not the property management company. They need to keep proper accounts and then make periodic reports back to the owner. So I want you to change that definition slightly there on page 248 for what is the primary function of a property manager.
Who preserves?
To put in there a little arrow where it says a property manager is someone who preserves. I want you to also pencil in there or increases the value of an investment property while generating income as an agent for the owner.
Mm-hmm. Preserves or increases. Yeah. Oh, value.
All right. So management agreement is a written agreement that creates that agency relationship between the owners and the property manager. It's their limited power of attorney, which defines their scope of authority on how they can legally bind their clients to contracts. We went over this in chapter 3 too. While most real estate agents function as special agents, you're limited to operate in one capacity only. What does that mean? You cannot legally bind your clients to a contract. That's all that means. So most agents work as special agents. You're hired to find a ready, willing, and able buyer for a seller. You can't accept offers and sign contracts on their behalf, right? That's what a special agent does. Now, a general agent, they can legally bind their clients to a contract within the limited scope of their authority, which is granted in the power of attorney. And their property management agreement is that power of attorney agreement. It defines what their duties are and what authority the owner of the property is granted to the property manager. So what can a property manager do that what can a general agent do that a special agent cannot?
Sign contracts.
They can legally bind their clients to a contract by signing contracts, yes. So they have all the same fiduciary duties that a special agent would. Cold, care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, disclosure. Seem familiar? Remember that from way back chapter 3? Your fiduciary duties?
Agencies.
5, right?
Care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, which includes confidentiality, and disclosure, which includes notice. All right, so is usually considered a general agent, whereas most real estate brokers function as special agents. You're very special.
Very special.
All right. So, like I said on that previous slide, property managers could be tasked with budgeting expenses, the operating expenditures and capital expenditures, renting the property by setting the rental rates, selecting tenants and collecting the rents from them, maintaining and improving the property, hiring employees or independent contractors, legally binding them to the property owner, not the management company, and evaluating the insurance that the owner has on the property to make sure they have proper coverages. Not too much of this coverage, not enough of this coverage. Now you're not expected to be an expert in insurance, but if you're a property manager and you're working as a property manager, get an insurance expert to come in and sit down with them to evaluate this policy to make sure that they're not underinsured or overinsured in certain areas. Okay? So if you're interested in becoming a property manager and you want to learn more about that, there's a designation course you could take called the CPM, the Certified Property Manager. I'm sure there's many other courses out there like this as well, but the CPM, this course has been around since the 70s or even older than that. I don't know. Let me take a look. I think it says somewhere here. I thought it did. Anyway, the CPM, Certified Property Manager course, was created by IREM, the Institute of Real Estate Management, in cooperation with BOMA, the Building Owner and Managers Association. Now, there's other classes you could take, like from CAI, C-A-I. That's the Community Association Institute. So if you plan on doing any property management for condominium complexes or for cooperatives, they could teach you the nuances of dealing with residential or commercial condominiums complexes. So here's just a bunch of resources I have pertaining to that stuff and classes you could take. See, does this link work? Yeah.
What's it, the average salary for property management?
Average, I'm not sure, but you can make a lot of money in property management. You usually get pretty good benefits too. You get health benefits and all kinds of stuff because some property management companies, they could hire you on as an employee. The broker will hire you as an employee. Others, you're still an independent contractor. You know, it depends. Are you working for the owner who's a broker? You're working for a broker who's contracted by the owner. It depends. But property managers, it depends. It really depends on the property and what exactly it is that you're managing. But there could be some good money in it, definitely. Let's see. Benefits of CPA designation. Make more money. The average base property manager salary in the U.S. is $62,850. For CPMs, the average is $139,506.
Wow.
So you can see there's a wide price range there for how much you could make as a property manager. And over here they're showing it depends on the education that you have too. Do you know what you're doing?
Have the skills.
Yeah. I don't know. So here's one resource of that, learning about the property manager. You can watch those videos and everything on your own. I have all those additional resources here on this slide, which is also in the class links, Word, and notes document, right? Here, I'm going to copy these in case you want these right now. I'm going to copy these links and I'll share them with you. So here's some additional resources for you in the chat.
Thank you.
And then we also have this. So here it's okay. So yeah, this course, the CPM course, it was created in 1933. Or the Institute of Real Estate Management, rather, was founded in 1933 and is part of the National Association of Realtors. Members may earn the designation Certified Property Manager.
Mm-hmm.
The Building Owner and Managers Association International, BOMA International, is a federation of local associations of owners and managers, primarily of office buildings. Their participation in groups like these allows property managers to gain valuable professional knowledge by sharing with each other and discussing the problems and issues that they come across. So, property management is a growing field. And with co-ops and condominiums, you're seeing more and more of them popping up all over the place. There has to be a manager of those buildings, right? Who do the tenants reach out to? So the manager is hired by a homeowners association or organization, and they must develop different techniques because owners and tenants are one and the same. The Community Association Institute is a nonprofit organization founded in 1974, and they research and distribute information on associations' livings and offerings and trainings and designations, and they talk about software to do the management and all kinds of laws and issues that they come across. All right, so that concludes this chapter. That's the end. The end. The end. Okay, so let's do the key terms to review, and then we'll break for lunch. Before we do the key terms number 2, go down to key terms number 2, and where B is, B as in boy. Go to the end of the line. Paying rent.
We can't hear you.
And not paying rent.
And
Raise your volume. You guys are not hearing me. You got to raise your volumes a little bit there.
Not
No, it's
paying.
they're mumbling again.
I'm not.
That's the thing.
I'm talking pretty loud.
We don't hear it
We
as you
just,
talking like
yeah, it's just breaking up.
it's like it starts the sentence and it sounds like blah 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 and then it finish.
Oh,
So we add what we adding?
And not paying rent, right?
And not
Right.
paying.
correct. And not paying rent.
So a transfer from property by lease and not paying rent. B,
No.
right?
For letter B, as in boy, at the end of that, you're writing and not paying rent.
Okay.
Okay. And then next to letter D, as in David, at the end of that line, you're going to write automatically renews.
After the rent,
Where it says no stated ending date, you're going to write automatically renews. That's key terms 2, letter D.
after what?
After that line for letter D, as in David,
Uh-huh.
you're writing automatically renews. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So let's get started doing the key terms 1. Landlord's responsibility for decent conditions.
It's state for years.
Gross lease.
What do you call the landlord's responsibility for decent conditions, providing decent conditions for their tenants?
Gross lease.
Implied warranty of habitability.
I was just reading that.
Oh,
9 is A. A transfer of property by lease.
and not paying rent.
No, that's not that
No.
one.
What do you call a transfer of property by lease?
Leasy.
The leasee.
That's a person. What do you
Oh.
call a transfer of property by
Assignment.
lease?
Assignment? No.
Demise?
Demise. Remember, every lease
Yeah.
is a demising clause that will transfer the property using the lease. Or is B. Situation when a tenant remains after the lease period has expired.
Hold over tenancy.
8 is C, the holdover tenancy. A contract between a landlord and a tenant transferring rights to use real property for a specific period of time in exchange for rent.
That's a gross lease.
Let's go over it again. It doesn't give you enough information to know what kind. It says a contract between a landlord. What do you call the contract between a landlord and a tenant that transfers the rights to use and occupy the property for a specific period of time in exchange for rent? Simply a lease.
Just a lease.
It's just a lease. Isn't that describing what a lease does? The lease is a contract between the landlord and the tenant transferring the right to use the real property for a specific period of time in exchange for rent.
It's a lease.
Right?
Yes.
It doesn't give you enough information there to know what kind of lease. So 10 is D, as in David.
Lease for a different.
Lease for a definite period of time. A lease for a definite period of time.
State for years.
It's state for lease. I mean, it's state for years.
Estate for years is correct. 5 is E. Suit for possession and legal removal of a tenant.
Actual eviction.
1 is E. 1 is F, as in Frank. Rental of land on which a tenant erects their own building.
We just did this one. A ground lease.
It is. 7 is G. Another name for the tenant? What do we call the tenant?
Leasing.
Lizzie.
C, correct. 11 is H, as in Harry.
Lease under
A
what?
lease under which the landlord pays taxes, insurance, and other expenses.
Gross lease.
Gross lease.
6 is
No.
I.
Yes.
Yeah.
Transfer of primary responsibility for a lease to another party.
Assignment.
Mm.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, assignment.
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 2 is J, assignment. Tenant is forced to move because the rental unit becomes uninhabitable.
Constructive eviction.
Eviction.
3 is K, constructive eviction is correct. All right,
So-
yeah.
So my question is, I'm confused. In the beginning, you said you add it with B as in boy and not paying rent.
That's
And
on
you add
Wait, what do
Huh?
you? No.
in the beginning, you said,
The only modifications I told you to do was for the key terms 2, not key terms 1.
oh man, girl. Okay. I wrote it down in the key term one. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
All right. All right.
Oh. Okay,
So
continue.
let's do the key terms 2 now. Lease, in which a tenant pays expenses like property taxes, insurance, and so forth.
Lease rent, that is a net lease.
3 is A, the net lease. Tenant remains after the lease term without the landlord's consent and not paying rent.
Suit for possession. Tenant refraining after leaving.
What do you call the situation where a tenant
Oh.
remains after the lease term without the landlord's consent and they're not paying rent?
Tenancy
Tenancy
sufferance.
of
Sufferance.
Yes, 9 is B, tenancy at sufferance.
9B.
A lease in which a landlord shares in the gross receipts of the tenant's business.
Leave in which landlord says gross reception.
Person lease.
Percentage lease, 4 is C. A lease with regular payments and no stated ending date. It automatically
Yeah,
renews.
That's net lease.
periodic estate. Periodic.
What?
No.
What did you say? No, I didn't hear you. What did you say?
Periodic estate.
Yes, periodic estate. 5 is D.
Person
Person who looks after another's rental real estate. What do you call that person?
sublease.
Management, property management.
A
Manager.
property manager. 6 is E.
Mm.
Tenancy that may be terminated when the landlord or the tenant wishes.
Terminated.
What kind of tenancy may be terminated when the landlord or the tenant wishes?
The tenancy at will.
At will, at their will. 10 is F. Landlord's court action to evict the tenant.
Oh, court action.
What do you call the landlord's court action to evict the tenant?
Suit for possession. Suit for possession.
8 is G, suit for possession. A transfer of only a portion of the lease, which I don't like
Transfer.
the definition, but okay. A transfer of only a portion of the lease. I don't like that definition, but
Yeah, but it's a sublease, right?
it is. 7 is H.
It's confusing. Wow.
Yeah. A property manager's employment agreement.
Management agreement.
2 is I. State requirement that tenants be notified of their rights.
Truth in reading.
11 is J. And another word for landlord,
Lesser,
Lessor.
lesser.
the lessor. 1 is K,
Lessor, yeah.
the lessor. Okay, and that concludes chapter 12.
OMG. Yeah.